Hey guys, Nick from Fear and Beer. Today we're going to do some Halloween Horror Nights homework. I'm going to try to catch you up to speed on some of these IPs as they get announced so we can better understand and get ready for these houses. I'm going to give you some insight, I'm going to give you some moments I want to see in the house, I'm going to talk about where to find this stuff and how to catch up with all you need to.
Okie dokie.
This year at Halloween Horror Nights, we are going to be experiencing Fallout for the first time ever. Now, Fallout is a giant media franchise, but is mostly centered around the post-apocalyptic video game that was created by Tim Kaine and Leonard Boyarsky. The video game franchise is set primarily between the third millennium, post a giant devastating nuclear war between China and the United States, known as the Great War. The game is riddled with influence from the whole 1950s post-war culture.
Our American way of life seems perfect. But what if it's not? Where will you be when the atomic bombs fall?
Now, the games have been around for a while. The first iteration of Fallout came out in 1997. It was for PC and Mac. Fallout 2 came out 1 year later, 1998, again for PC and Mac. We took a big leap in time. It took 10 years, but we finally got Fallout 3 in 2008. It was available for the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. 2 years later, in 2010, we got the release of Fallout New Vegas, and that was also on PS3 and Xbox 360. Jumping 5 years later, in 2015, we got what might arguably be the most popular in the series, Fallout 4. This was released on the PS4 and the Xbox One, and now you can actually digitally download it on your PS5 and your Xbox X. 2018, that's when we saw our last video game iteration of Fallout, not counting the expansion packs, but this was Fallout 76. Like I said, I didn't play a lot of these games, so I'm going to give a quick little rundown of the main series and the stories, but real basic stuff. Now, the years jump around a lot in this series, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The original Fallout, 1997. On October 23rd, 2077, a nuclear war broke out between China and America.
In 2077, the storm of World War had come again. In 2 brief hours, most of the planet was reduced to cinders.
And that's what really kick-started this whole series. Fallout 1 was set in 2161, decades after a nuclear war devastated the US. You play as a vault dweller from Vault 13. You're sent into the wasteland to find a water purification chip, which actually gets referenced in the series, I believe. Along the way, you encounter a growing threat, though. This is the mutant army led by the Master. You must stop him and his plans to forcibly evolve humanity. Fallout 2. 80 years later, you play as the Chosen One.
Come in, Chosen One.
A descendant of the original Vault Dweller from the first iteration of this franchise. Your tribal village is dying, and you must find a device called the GECK, also known as the Garden of Eden Creation Kit. Throughout this game, you're going to battle different slavers, corrupt governments, and the remnants of the Enclave. Fallout 3. Now, this one is set in 2277. This one is set in Washington, D.C. You are referred to as the Lone Wanderer, and you are from Vault 101. In this game, your father disappears from the vault, and you go into the wasteland to find him and bring him back. In this game, you uncover Project Purity. This is a plan to purify the capital's wasteland's water supply, and you must stop the Enclave from hijacking it. Fallout New Vegas is set in 2281 in the Mojave Desert, right in that Nevada area. Obviously, Las Vegas, New Vegas, you get it. In this one, you play as the Courier. You were shot, left for dead, and you wake up between this giant battle. When you wake up, you're caught in this war between these different factions who are trying to take control of the area. You have the NCR, Caesar's Legions, and the enigmatic Mr. House. Now, Fallout 4, this is set in 2287 in the Boston area, and you are the sole survivor of Vault 111. In this one, you are cryogenically frozen, and you wake up seeing your wife murdered and your child kidnapped. Similar to Fallout New Vegas, you wake up and you're kind of stuck in this war between these different factions trying to take control. In this one, we're introduced to the Brotherhood of Steel, the Institute, and the Railroad, and they're all vying for control. Now, Fallout 76 is actually a multiplayer prequel. This is set in 2102, just 25 years after the bombs went off. In this one, you are all Vault Dwellers from Vault 76, and your task is to rebuild America. Now, this one was initially criticized because there wasn't as much NPCs, so they did come out with later updates, and we're not going to get too much into the updates because there's a handful of them, and like I said, I didn't play a lot of these games, so if anything I'm saying is a little off, apologies. Like I said, I didn't play a lot of these video games, but if you did, drop a comment below. Let me know what your favorite one in the franchise is, and I might pick it up. So before we get into other stuff like the characters, let's go through the timeline a little bit. So 2077 is when the bombs drop from the Great War between China and America. Now, chronological order, Fallout 76 is first. This takes place in 2102 to 2105. Fallout, the original game, comes right after that in 2161 to 2162. Fallout 2 follows that at year 2041 to 42. Fallout 3 is 2077 to 20. Fallout 3 is 2277 to 2220. And these years are weird. How am I going to say this when they actually happen? Fallout 3 is 2020. It's not 2020. I keep saying it. 22. Fallout 3 is 2277 to 2278. Fallout New Vegas is 2281 to 2282. Fallout 4 takes place in 2287. And now the Fallout series from Amazon Prime takes place from 2296. That's the cool thing about this franchise is everything's canon, right? Doesn't matter if it's game or Amazon series, these all take place in the same world. We're following different characters, but everything is still timeline-wise perfectly okay. And what's interesting, since it's all canon, in the Amazon series, we saw Walton Goggins when he was getting his photo shoot for Vault-Tec, and he goes, hey, can I do a thumbs up? So I'm just assuming that Vault Boy was inspired by his character. Pretty interesting that we finally touched upon that. Not that we needed to, but it's fun. So let's get into some of these characters. We're not going to see all these at Halloween Horror Nights because, as we know, it's primarily based around the TV series. And not all of these characters are in that. The biggest ones, however, is the Vault Dwellers. These are residents of the underground bunkers. Typically, in all these games, and as you see in the series, this is the protagonist of the story. A lot of these vaults were really experimental. As you can see in the series, that was kind of the basis behind them. Each person, each company was vying for different vaults to run different experiments to see how we could rebuild the world better after this nuclear explosion. Ghouls. These were once humans that were exposed to high radiation. Some of these ghouls can retain civilization, but some of them go what is called feral. And they just kind of go more in the zombie world. In the Fallout world, the ghouls are often discriminated against and kind of cast aside. As we can see in the Amazon series, I think is the most prime example where they're really outsiders. Super mutants. These are former humans that were mutated by the forced evolutionary virus, the FEV. Doesn't get touched on the show, but it is a part of the game. They are strong, they are tough, and they live for a very long time. Some of them are intelligent, but again, kind of like the ghouls, sometimes their minds wander, and these ones are more aggressive. Synths. These were androids created by the Institute, as we found in Fallout 4. These range from Gen 1 to Gen 3. Raiders. Like any post-apocalyptic franchise, movie, game, what have you, Raiders are pretty self-explanatory. These are still humans that are just ravaging the world for whatever they can. These are very, very violent groups. There's a few different themes, and really all these groups are small and not associated with another. So you could have fiends, you could have the gunners. They're all over the place. The Brotherhood of Steel. This is a weird techno-religious military order. It's really interesting how they kind of mesh three sort of opposing thoughts. Now, the Brotherhood of Steel, these are the ones that hoard all the pre-war material. Now, sometimes in the games, in the franchise, they can be your ally, but in the series, as we saw, it kind of wavers. They're very, very militaristic, they're authoritarian, and the vibe they give off as a whole is just not great. The Enclave. These are descendants of pre-war U.S. government and military elite. They seek to reclaim control over America, even though there's, let's just say, suspect means. They use advanced tech, power armor, and propaganda to kind of push their message. The Institute. This is a very secretive, high-tech scientists, and they live beneath the ruins of MIT. Again, we find that out in Fallout 4. They focus more on synthetic life and technological control over the population. The NCR, or the New California Republic. This is a democratic republic trying to restore order to the West. We kind of got a little bit of a reference of that in the TV series. They are very ambitious, bureaucratic, and still, like everything in these worlds, flawed. Caesar's Legion. This is a ruthless slavery army based on kind of Roman ideology, as by, you can guess, the name. They are known specifically for their brutality, their order through fear, and intimidation. Now, in the video game franchise, we are introduced to a whole bunch of really cool creatures that are all mutated and radiated. In the TV series, we are introduced to the Yaogwai, rad roaches, and even a gulper. But there's so much more that this franchise has to offer. But let's just go into those three really quick. Now, rad roaches, these are giant cockroaches. They even make reference of it in these series. They're like, well, they always said that cockroaches would outlast humanity. Well, not only did they outlast us, but they got even bigger. There's not much to them. The rad roaches are essentially radiated cockroaches. They're giant, they feed on you, nasty little buggers. The Yaogwai is this giant mutated bear. It keeps a lot of the resemblance to the bear itself, but it almost has this zombified look, and they are larger in scale. Now, gulpers are these almost like salamander-like creatures that are way bigger than a salamander. They're giant. The one we saw in the TV series was actually from an experiment in Vault-4. They were performing experiments on humans and non-radiated affected creatures. And, well, that's how we got this one. It's got these, like, fingers in its mouth. It's really bizarre looking, but they're kind of like bottom feeders. Because in one scene, when we see the gulper get taken down, it kind of throws up almost like a shark would. And you see all this trash pile out. They're really just bottom feeders, but they will attack and kill anybody. Now, since Halloween Horror Nights is going to be based primarily on the TV show, let's get into that a little bit. So, spoiler warning, if you haven't watched the series yet, it's 8 episodes, you can stream it pretty quick. I would say go watch it and then come back to this conversation. So the series stars Ella Purnell as our main protagonist, Lucy McLean. She's from Vault-33. She's an overly optimistic, sheltered, yet pretty badass character. We follow her as she journeys into the wasteland to find her father, who was captured and pulled out into the wasteland. Aaron Modem, who plays Maximus. He's a young squire in the Brotherhood of Steel, but through, let's just say, interesting circumstances, he takes over the role of Knight Titus. Now, Maximus started as a squire, and a squire is essentially just a helper of the knight. They carry all the luggage, they do whatever they ask. It's very, like we said, militaristic, so they're that lower rank kind of grunt. Now, Maximus took over the role of Knight Titus after a Yaogwai, I think I'm saying that right, but essentially a giant radiated bear attacked Knight Titus and killed him, or at least left him for dead. We're introduced to Walton Goggins, who plays Cooper Howard, or the Ghoul. Before the war, he was a very famous actor, and he took on the role of kind of an ambassador for Vault-Tec.
Hello there. I'm here to show you a wonderful place.
Now, as a ghoul, he's sort of a legend. He's a lone gunsman out for hire. One of the best gunslingers in the West, which is pretty fitting because Cooper Howard, explosions, was a famous Western actor. Now, in the series, there's a whole lot of other characters that we can kind of get into, but those are our three main characters. As a whole, the Fallout TV show depicts the aftermath of the Great War. We pick up on this. This is the last timeline that we've seen in the whole Fallout franchise, but again, it needs to be said. The main story is really Lucy traveling into the wasteland, trying to find her father, who was captured during a raid of Vault-33 in the very beginning of this series. And while Lucy is the main character of this series, we do receive a lot of backstory and follow-ups with both Maximus and the Ghoul. Now, according to the IGN article that Matt Flood and John Murdy took part in, guests will enter Vault-33 and follow Lucy McLean as she tries to escape a bloody massacre, while also learning of an evil hidden secret, which in the show, if you've watched it, we already know. The journey will then take guests outside the vault and into the wasteland, where they will need to dodge attacks from both scavengers, raiders, and even mutated cockroaches known as rad roaches.
Okie dokie.
That's right, we're getting rad roaches. Throughout the trek into the wasteland, we're going to hit the Super Duper Mart, we're going to meet the Ghoul, and we're even going to see Maximus in his giant T-60 armor. Now, Flood, in this interview, did add that in Orlando, we do have a big final battle moment. So I'm very curious what we're going to be seeing there. Obviously with Fallout, the TV series, it follows a storyline, which is a little bit harder to do in a haunted house. So I really don't think we're going to see a lot of the main storyline beats, but we're going to see a lot of that world. So when you're watching the series, you do have to kind of look at it from that lens, saying, I know this is important to the story, but does it fit in a haunted house? Now, after rewatching the series, I did take 3 moments from the show that I think would make really fun moments in the house. I obviously think we're going to kickstart the house similar to how we started the series. We're going to have the raid of Vault-33. This is where sirens are going to be going, red lights are going to be going, there's going to be dead bodies everywhere, and it's just this sheer panic setting in that they are under attack. I really hope we get to see the one guy kind of get cut in half by the vault door when it slides shut. Now, this is going to make a great entry into the house because we're going to know the world we're in, but it's also going to still work with that, haunted house horror aesthetic. There's going to be a lot of panic. There's going to be characters probably in the Vault-Tec suit and the Raider gear, and we're just not going to know who's who at that point. Another small setting that I think would be really interesting would just be kind of a wasteland house. Sort of as Lucy is going through the wasteland, we're sort of being introduced to this world as she is. Now, this wasteland house that we saw in the series, I believe is somewhere in episode 2, or maybe even the tail end of 1. But it's just a very vacant house. There's dust and saw everywhere. There's skeletons sitting at the table, and there's little poison bottles and poison capsules, where clearly the previous house owners just took the easy way out. I think this would be a fun way to kind of transition from Vault into the wasteland before we get to the craziness of the other stuff. Now, the third room that I think would be really fun would be this kind of wasteland shootout. This was episode 2 when the ghoul took Wilzig into this little town center of raiders and essentially turns into a giant shootout. I think being thrust into this madness of this world would be really fun, and kind of ducking and dodging all this stuff that's happening while the ghoul is kind of in there popping out. This has a lot of collapsed buildings. It almost looks Western to an extent, but I think that this room could be done very well. Now, what houses does this compare to? I would say if I had to compare this to any previous houses without even walking through it, I would say, there's obviously semblance of Last of Us being another post-apocalyptic video game turned series, but I think we're going to have a little bit of that. It's going to be a little bit of Descendants of Destruction from a couple years ago, but also because it has that 1950s post-war culture, we're going to get a little bit of Bugs Eaten Alive in there. I think that this adds a really interesting combination to create a very fun house. Now, what do you need to do to get ready for this? Do you need to play all the video games? No. Just watch the Amazon series. Like we said, everything in this franchise is canon, but the Amazon series seems to be what Halloween Horror Nights is primarily focusing on. In the key art, the t-shirts, it's very much the Ghoul and Walton Goggins. The series is only 8 episodes. It's a pretty quick watch, and it's very, very fun. Now, what's in store for the future of the Fallout franchise other than Halloween Horror Nights? Well, in December, we are going to be getting Fallout Season 2, and supposedly, at some point in the distant future, Fallout 5 will be releasing, but all the research I saw, it says either 2030 or later, so nothing you have to be on the lookout very soon for. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. If you like this and it helped you out, don't forget to like and subscribe. We have plenty of Halloween Horror Nights content coming to you very soon.